Welcome back to our channel World of Coins, the place where we uncover hidden treasures in your coin collection. Have you ever wondered if that old coins could be worth thousands or even millions? Well, today's your lucky day. We're diving into some of the rarest and most valuable US coins that might be sitting right under your nose. Let's jump in and see if you've got a fortune waiting to be discovered. Top 1. Every once in a while, a coin comes along that completely rewrites the rules. A coin that doesn't just catch a collector's eye, but leaves them speechless. One that breaks the mold of ordinary pocket change and transforms into something legendary. And believe it or not, one of those coins is a Washington quarter from the year 1970. It looks just like any other. It feels the same, weighs the same, even shines the same. But this one coin holds a secret so rare, so mysterious, and so valuable, it's taken the numismatic world by storm. Let's rewind the clock to 1970. The United States was entering a new decade. The country was recovering from the chaos of the 60s, the space race was winding down, and the US Mint was operating at full speed, producing coins for a growing economy. Among the many coins minted that year was the humble Washington quarter. By then, the design had already become an American icon, George Washington's profile on the front, proudly facing left, and the majestic eagle on the reverse with wings outstretched. The quarter had moved from being silver to clad just 5 years earlier, in 1965. That meant that instead of being 90% silver like older versions, the quarters minted in 1970 were composed of copper sandwiched between 2 layers of nickel. In other words, there wasn't anything special about them, or so people thought. You see, in 1970, millions of these quarters were struck at the Denver and Philadelphia mints, with most going straight into circulation. And yet, buried within that massive production run, something unexpected happened. A mistake, an extraordinary error, occurred. A coin that never should have existed suddenly did. Somewhere along the line, a planchet, essentially a blank coin ready to be struck, found its way into the wrong press. But this wasn't just any planchet. It was a planchet that already bore traces of another coin, a 1941 Canadian quarter. Yes, you heard that right. A US quarter from 1970 was struck over a Canadian quarter from nearly 30 years earlier. How does that even happen? That's the question that still baffles experts to this day. The US Mint has strict procedures in place to avoid exactly this kind of error. Planchets and dies are constantly checked, sorted, and rechecked. So how a Canadian coin ended up being overstruck with a US design is a mystery that remains unsolved. What we do know is that the resulting coin is absolutely stunning. When you examine it closely, you can see elements of both coins. The sharp design of the 1970 Washington quarter overlays the faint but visible remains of the original 1941 Canadian coin underneath. It's like history layered on history. A coin struck across generations, across borders, across minting standards. Coins like this aren't created on purpose. They're born from chaos, from confusion, from one-in-a-million circumstances. And that's what makes them so fascinating, and so incredibly valuable. Collectors go wild for this kind of error. Not only because of how rare it is, but because of the story it tells. This isn't just a coin, it's a puzzle, a conversation piece, a slice of mystery preserved in metal. And what's even more unbelievable? It actually escaped the mint. It ended up out in the world. Somebody had this coin in their pocket. Maybe even spent it. Maybe it bought a coffee, a newspaper, or a parking meter minute. And then one day, someone noticed something odd about it. Took a closer look. Sent it for inspection. And the world found out, this particular coin was authenticated and examined by top grading agencies. Experts confirmed it was real, an authentic mint error of jaw-dropping rarity. And from there, its reputation only grew. Collectors from all over the world set their sights on it. They knew they were looking at one of the most unusual quarters in existence. Eventually, the coin made its way to auction. And that's when the world really paid attention. The buzz was electric. Bidding was fierce. This wasn't just about owning a coin, it was about owning a piece of unrepeatable history. One of the strangest and most beautiful accidents in the history of American coinage, and when the auctioneer's hammer finally came down, the final price wasn't just impressive, it was staggering. That simple, everyday-looking 1970 Washington quarter, struck over a Canadian coin, marked by time and error, was sold for $125,000, yes. $125,000. So the next time you're handed a quarter, don't just toss it into your pocket without a second thought. Look closer. Feel the edges. Study the date. Because who knows? You might be holding one of the rarest coins ever made. One coin that could turn your spare change into a collector's dream, and maybe, just maybe, into a life-changing reward. Top 2. Have you ever held a coin in your hand and wondered where it's been, what it's seen, and, most importantly, what it might be worth? Most people think of coins as small, everyday objects, easily forgotten in jars or between couch cushions. But in the fascinating world of numismatics, some coins are more than just currency, they're stories, mysteries, and sometimes, hidden treasures. And one coin that fits that description perfectly is the 1982 Washington quarter dollar. It's a coin that millions of Americans have seen, spent, and saved, yet very few know its true potential value. The Washington quarter has long been a symbol of strength and consistency in American coinage. First minted in 1932 to commemorate the 200th birthday of George Washington, the design became so iconic that it stayed virtually unchanged for decades. By the time we reached 1982, the quarter was a familiar sight, an essential part of everyday transactions. But that year, something unusual happened, something that would eventually turn this humble coin into a hot item for collectors across the globe. To understand what makes the 1982 quarter so special, we need to look at what was happening at the U.S. Mint during that time. The early 1980s were marked by economic pressure and tight federal budgets. As a result, the Mint made a major change: it stopped producing uncirculated mint sets for collectors. This meant that many coins minted in 1982 were released directly into circulation without any specially preserved versions available to the public. What this created was a scarcity of high-quality examples. Unlike other years, where pristine coins were saved and packaged, 1982 quarters were tossed into circulation from the start. That alone made them rarer in higher grades. But that's just the beginning of the story. In 1982, two varieties of quarters were struck at the Denver Mint. One had a strong, bold, D mint mark with well-defined details in the date and inscriptions. The other featured a much weaker strike, resulting in softer, sometimes barely visible features. These became known as the strong D and weak D varieties. Collectors quickly realized that the weak D version was not only less common, it was also a fascinating glimpse into the minting inconsistencies of the time, but even more intriguing were the errors. Every once in a while, something at the Mint would go wrong, whether it was a misaligned die, an off-center strike, or a coin struck on the wrong metal planchet. These accidents are extremely rare, but when they happen, they create coins that stand out like shining stars in the numismatic world. Some 1982 quarters were struck on copper planchets intended for pennies, creating a noticeable difference in color and weight. Others were missing their outer nickel layer altogether, showing a strange coppery glow on both sides. Coins with these kinds of errors, especially from a year with limited high-quality production, are like gold to collectors. Not just because of their rarity, but because they're tangible evidence of a moment where the Mint's precision slipped, creating something truly unique. These are the coins people spend years hunting for, searching through rolls, inspecting every edge, every letter, every detail with a magnifying glass, and then there's the question of condition. Because 1982 quarters were used in everyday circulation, finding one in mint or near mint condition is incredibly rare. Most are scratched, worn down, or dulled by years of use. So when a coin from that year turns up in almost perfect shape, and has a verified mint error, it's like striking oil in your backyard. Collectors take notice. Auctions start buzzing. And bids begin to rise. Now, imagine being the person who unknowingly held such a coin. Maybe it sat in a family coin jar for years. Maybe it was given as change at a grocery store and tossed into a drawer. One day, it gets rediscovered. Sent for grading. Verified by experts. And then the world learns what it really is, a rare, nearly flawless 1982 Washington quarter with a 1 in a million error, preserved against the odds. That coin made its way to auction. It didn't look like much at first glance. Just a regular quarter to the untrained eye. But beneath the surface was a rare anomaly, a perfect storm of timing, error, and preservation. Bidding was fierce. Collectors understood its true value. And in the end, it wasn't just a coin. It was a treasure. That single 1982 Washington quarter, with its rare features and impeccable condition, was sold for $105,000, yes, you heard that right, $105,000. So next time you're about to toss your spare change into a machine or drop it into a tip jar, take a second to look closer. Because history doesn't always come wrapped in gold. Sometimes, it hides in copper and nickel. And sometimes, it jingles in your pocket, just waiting to be discovered. Top 3. What if I told you that a coin, one you might have carried in your pocket without even thinking, could actually be worth more than a luxury car or even a down payment on a house? Sounds unbelievable, right? But in the world of coin collecting, the line between ordinary and extraordinary is thinner than you think. Today, we're unlocking the amazing story of the 1990 United States Washington quarter dollar, a coin that most people overlook, but one that has captured the attention of collectors, experts, and auction houses alike. The Washington quarter has long been a staple of American currency. Introduced in 1932 to honor the 200th birthday of George Washington, its design became instantly iconic. For decades, his left-facing portrait adorned the front, while a powerful eagle perched with outstretched wings decorated the reverse. By 1990, this classic design had become deeply familiar, so familiar that people hardly even looked at it anymore. But in that sea of sameness, something rare was hiding. A few 1990 quarters were struck with features that broke the mold, and they've gone on to become some of the most valuable modern coins in the world. To understand why, we have to look at the U.S. Mint's processes. In 1990, quarters were produced in massive quantities at the Philadelphia and Denver mints. These facilities operated at industrial scale, producing hundreds of millions of coins annually. At such high volumes, it's inevitable that the occasional error slips through. Most of these mistakes are minor, barely noticeable. But once in a while, an error occurs that transforms an ordinary coin into a collectible phenomenon. Some of the most coveted 1990 quarters are those that were struck using misaligned dies or struck multiple times. These mint errors, while unintentional, create a fascinating effect, like ghosted or doubled images, off-center designs, or even dramatic shifts in the positioning of letters and numbers. In some extreme cases, coins were struck on planchets meant for other denominations altogether, such as nickels or even foreign currency, resulting in mismatched weight, size, or appearance. One of the more famous varieties includes 1990 quarters missing the mint mark. Typically, coins from Philadelphia in that year didn't include a mint mark, while those from Denver did. But occasionally, a coin will turn up with features that don't match its supposed origin, adding to its mystery and desirability. What also makes the 1990 quarter particularly intriguing to collectors is how hard it is to find high-grade examples. Most of these coins were never specially preserved. They went straight into circulation, rattling through vending machines, gas stations, and pockets for decades. Over time, they became scratched, worn down, and overlooked. So when a coin from that year appears in uncirculated or near-mint condition, and especially if it carries an unusual error or anomaly, it becomes incredibly valuable. Now imagine being the person who finds one of these coins. Maybe it's sitting in a coin jar in the kitchen, or maybe it's the result of casually sorting through loose change. You pause for a moment, noticing something different. The strike is unusually sharp. The lettering looks off. Maybe the edge isn't quite what you expected. You do some research, send it in for grading, and soon discover what experts confirm: you're holding a rare, high-grade 1990 Washington quarter with an authentic mint error. From there, things start to snowball. Word spreads. Coin forums light up. Collectors from around the world start reaching out. And then comes the auction. The atmosphere is electric. The bids rise steadily, fueled by history, mystery, and the thrill of rare discovery, and then it happens. The gavel drops. A moment of silence. And the coin is sold, that 1990 Washington quarter, overlooked by many, celebrated by few, and preserved through a twist of fate, brought in a final auction price of $80,000, yes. $80,000. So next time you're handed a quarter, don't just assume it's worth only 25 cents. Take a closer look. Turn it over in your hand. Study the details. Because in the world of coins, the extraordinary often hides in the most ordinary places. And you never know, your next piece of change might just change your life. Top 4. There's something thrilling about finding a coin that stands out. It might look familiar at first glance, just like every other quarter you've ever handled. But a closer inspection reveals something strange, something special. Today, we're diving into the story of one such coin, the 1994 United States Washington quarter dollar. It's a coin you've probably seen 100 times, but very few people know just how extraordinary it can be. The Washington quarter has been a part of American currency for over 9 decades. First minted in 1932, it quickly became a fixture in everyday life. By 1994, millions of Americans were using this coin every day, dropping it into vending machines, feeding it to parking meters, or tossing it into piggy banks. But as is often the case in the world of coin collecting, it's not the common coins that change everything, it's the rare ones hiding in plain sight. The 1990s were an interesting time for coin production in the United States. The U.S. Mint, operating from several locations including Philadelphia and Denver, was producing billions of coins annually. In 1994 alone, more than 1.3 billion Washington quarters were struck. At such high volumes, the mint relies on precision and efficiency, but even the best machines make mistakes. And those mistakes are exactly what collectors live for. The 1994 quarter is no exception. While the design remained unchanged, George Washington's dignified profile on the front, and the proud eagle on the reverse, certain examples of this coin ended up being anything but ordinary. Some were struck off-center, resulting in a design that doesn't quite fit on the coin. Others were struck with misaligned dies, creating ghosted or doubled images. These kinds of mint errors are rare, but when they're found on coins in excellent condition, their value skyrockets. Then there are the truly unusual cases. A few 1994 quarters have been discovered struck on the wrong metal planchet, meaning instead of being made from the standard copper-nickel clad composition, they were struck on blanks intended for other denominations, or even for foreign currency. These coins often weigh less or more than usual, look slightly off in color, or feel different to the touch. But to trained eyes, and to collectors, these details are signs of something truly special. Imagine holding a 1994 quarter in your hand. To most, it's just change. But for you, there's something about it that catches your attention. Maybe the edge is too smooth. Maybe the details look odd. You weigh it. It seems just a little off. Then you send it in for evaluation, and the results confirm your suspicions. What you found is no ordinary coin. It's a genuine U.S. Mint error, the kind that turns everyday change into a collector's dream. What makes the 1994 quarter even more remarkable is how hard it is to find in pristine condition. Most coins from that year have been through decades of wear and tear, chipped, scuffed, or faded. Finding one in mint state or better is already a challenge. Combine that with a known error or a rare variety, and you're looking at a piece that can ignite bidding wars at auctions across the country. Even minor details can make a major difference. The tiniest error, an extra line, a doubled letter, or a slightly off-centered portrait, can raise the value of a coin dramatically. And while the average person might not notice these nuances, trained collectors do. They're always on the hunt. Always scanning their change. Always searching for the next big discovery hiding in a pile of what looks like ordinary coins. The beauty of coin collecting lies in the unknown. Any day, any time, someone can stumble upon a coin that defies expectations. And sometimes, that discovery turns out to be life-changing. That was the case for one lucky collector who found a 1994 quarter that not only featured a rare minting error, but was also preserved in exceptional condition, free from the wear that affects nearly all other coins from that year. When this coin surfaced, it was sent to a professional grading service. Experts studied it closely, authenticated its error, and gave it an extremely high grade. It quickly became the talk of the collecting world. The rarity, the condition, the story behind it, it had all the ingredients of a numismatic legend. Eventually, this very special 1994 Washington quarter made its way to auction. There was buzz, there was anticipation, and there were collectors from all over ready to bid. When the final price was revealed, it left the entire community in awe. That single 1994 quarter, with its flawless strike and rare mint error, was sold for $85,000, yes. $85,000. So the next time you're about to drop a quarter into a parking meter, take a moment. Look closely. Inspect the edges. Study the details. Because hidden among the billions of coins in circulation are a few rare gems, coins that tell a story, hold a mystery, and maybe, just maybe, are worth more than you could ever imagine. Top 5. Sometimes, the smallest things in life hold the biggest surprises. Imagine walking past a coin on the ground, assuming it's just another quarter, and never knowing that it could be worth a small fortune. That's the magic of coin collecting. Hidden treasures are often sitting right under our noses, disguised as everyday change. And today, we're going to take a closer look at one of those potential treasures, the 1995 United States Washington quarter dollar. A coin that might seem ordinary to most but has proven to be anything but. By 1995, the Washington quarter had been in circulation for over 6 decades. Since 1932, it had carried the proud image of George Washington on its obverse, paired with the heraldic eagle on the reverse. Millions of these coins were minted every year, making them one of the most commonly seen and used pieces of American currency. But in a world where billions of coins are made, not all of them turn out the same. And it's those subtle differences, the rare anomalies and errors, that send collectors into a frenzy. In 1995, the U.S. Mint was operating out of Philadelphia and Denver, producing hundreds of millions of quarters to meet demand. Most of these coins went straight into circulation, clinking their way through soda machines, grocery stores, and coin jars across the country. But out of that massive production run, a very small number of quarters were struck with rare imperfections, errors that would eventually transform a humble 25-cent coin into something truly valuable. Let's talk about those errors. One of the most significant types of minting mistakes involves a phenomenon called a double die. In this situation, the coin's die, the metal stamp used to imprint the design, is incorrectly manufactured so that part of the image is doubled. On a 1995 Washington quarter, this can show up in the text, especially in the words, "Liberty, in God we trust," or even in the date itself. While to the untrained eye this might just look like a blur or shadow, to collectors, it's a sign of rarity and value. Another fascinating error found in some 1995 quarters is the off-center strike. This happens when the coin is not properly aligned with the press, and the design ends up shifted to one side. The result is a striking and visually unique coin that instantly stands out. Some collectors even consider these to be pieces of minting art, flawed, but in a beautiful and collectible way. But it doesn't end there. There have been reports of 1995 quarters struck on the wrong planchets, essentially, the blank pieces of metal meant for other coins. Imagine finding a quarter that was actually struck on a dime or even a foreign coin blank. The size, weight, and metal composition are all slightly off, and when paired with a 1995 Washington design, it creates a jaw-droppingly rare piece. Condition is another critical factor. A standard 1995 quarter that's been in circulation for years probably isn't worth more than its face value. But if that same coin has never been touched, never been scratched, and remains in pristine, uncirculated condition, it becomes significantly more desirable. Add a rare mint error to that coin, and you've got a serious collector's item. Now picture this: someone, somewhere, finds a 1995 quarter while going through old change. At first glance, it looks like any other. But something about it stands out. Maybe the date looks strange. Maybe the details seem sharper than usual. They decide to get it checked out, and to their surprise, it's confirmed by a grading authority as an authentic mint error, preserved in incredible condition. Word spreads fast in the coin community. Collectors take notice. The coin is discussed, shared, and speculated on. Eventually, it goes to auction. Bidders from around the country, and even around the world, show interest. They know that this isn't just another coin. It's a piece of minting history. A one-in-a-million survivor that slipped past the mint's quality control and into the hands of someone lucky enough to spot it. The tension builds as the bids climb higher and higher. And finally, the auction ends with a staggering figure, leaving even seasoned collectors speechless. That seemingly ordinary 1995 Washington quarter, thanks to its rare error and impeccable condition, was sold for $75,000. Yes, you heard that right, $75,000. So the next time you're handed a quarter, pause for a second. Look at the date. Look closely at the letters, the edges, the design. Because among the everyday coins in your change, there just might be one hiding in plain sight. And it could be the coin that changes everything.